Looks like there's been some fun teasers on the Warhammer community site here today, talking about some characters from both the Imperial Fists and the Salamanders that have gone through the Rubicon Primaris. Now, if we can watch both of these little videos here, and it kind of gives a little teaser of what's going on here. But we have this new awesome Salamanders character, which you'll find is not Vulkan He'stan. And then this new Imperial Fist, well, not a new Imperial Fist character, but a Imperial Fist character nonetheless, who we're about to talk about first. So with this, we can see that the pre-order for, you can see it right there, for Raven Guard Imperial Fists, Iron Hands, hasn't even finished, right? We're still not due for their launch until this coming Saturday. And they're hot on the heels of that pre-order, already moving towards the Salamanders and Imperial Fists. The Iron Hands and Raven Guard actually had a pretty big gap, or I guess a different gap in between the Ultramarines and the other supplement that came out with the Warhammer 40,000's new Codex Space Marines. So it looks like they're kind of ramping up the speed on the Space Marine supplements, probably to get them out quickly in order to make way for the Sisters of Battle or what have you. But with this, we do have some teasers for what their rules are. They're starting to make their rounds on the internet. So let's go through some of the rules for the Imperial Fist stuff coming out. First, here we have some point values, or I guess some teaser to point values. You can see Captain Lysander, Pedro Cantor, and Tor Garadon, Garadon are in what looks to be the Imperial Fist book. So we don't see any point values for Helbricht or any of the other portions of Black Templars. So this leads me to believe that the Imperial Fist supplement will actually only cover Imperial Fists and the Crimson Fists, which we know got their update with White Dwarf in around December 2018. So by looking at this, we might be looking at a Captain Lysander and Pedro Cantor that don't make up the cross through the Rubicon Primaris and stay as Firstborn Marines. And I believe that's the name of the what we're calling standard Space Marines are called Firstborn. So it looks to be like around 130 and 150 points. Their current point values as is, and Tor Garadon is around 140 something. We can't really see the rest of this, but it'll be interesting to see if they do get the Primaris treatment. I think Pedro Cantor needs it. If Captain Lysander doesn't, I would just love to see a Crimson Fist with a Primaris treatment done to them. Well, let's take a look at Tor Garadon's stat profile, and it's pretty beefy here. He gets a whopping 5 toughness in addition to 7 wounds. He's in Gravis armor as well, so he's got quite a bit going for him. It is interesting, though, that Games Workshop decided to give him just a grav gun and not his relic bolt pistol, the Spartian or Spartine, however you want to pronounce it. But he does have his Hand of Defiance, which is pretty beastly. It has strength times 3, so he'll be hitting with a whopping 12 strength, minus 3 AP, and a flat 3 damage. Now, of course, it is a quote-unquote unwieldy weapon, so it does have a minus 1 to hit here. So in close combat, he will actually be hitting with a weapon skill of 3 up when it comes to using his Hand of Defiance. But he does have some other cool little caveats here. He has a new Angel of Death, giving him a +1 to his attack on the charge. He also gets his Iron Halo for a 4-up invuln save. Rites of Battle, which also grants him hit rerolls of 1 to him and any Imperial Fist in a 6-inch radius around him. I mean, he is a captain after all. We also get 2 new special abilities with him. These are the ones that you really want to see. Signum Array, which allows for any Imperial Fist model, or he can select 1 friendly Imperial Fist unit, that is within 3 inches of him, to then use a 2-up ballistic skill versus their standard 3-up ballistic skill, and thus re-rolling on a hit rolls of 1 because they'll be within 3 inches of him. So it'll be quite nice because basically they'll have guaranteed re-rolls since they're hitting on a 2-up with their ballistic skill. Now, when it comes to Siege Captain here, we get an additional little bonus when you're fighting either vehicles or buildings that increases the damage characteristic of 1. So this will increase for the Hand of Defiance or the Grav Gun in this situation here. But I think it's a pretty interesting little choice to bring Tor Garadon to the table, and I think it's a pretty awesome one. I would have loved to have seen Spartian or Spartine, whichever one you want to, however you want to pronounce it. His relic bolt pistol is just a nice nod to his lore, but he is the captain of the Third Company, and he has a pretty cool wide-spanning lore too. Like, he was defending the Phalanx against an invasion, and then the Legion of the Damned had to pretty much come and save him, or at least help out, because that's what the Legion of the Damned does. But I'm really stoked to see more and more of these Primaris conversions, or I guess the Rubicon Primaris, for a lot of these special characters, mainly because I'm stoked to see a possible Mephiston, Dante, Astaroth, and so on and so forth for the Blood Angels. More importantly, I want to see less Blood Angel characters. Like, get rid of Captain Tycho. I don't want him. No one wants him. Let's move on. So let's take a look now at the Salamanders. And we've gotten quite a few leaks for the Salamanders. I apologize for the quality of these pictures. It's the best I could find on the internet. But right now we can see the new teaser for the Salamander's new psychic powers. So for one, we got Flaming Blast, which is pretty interesting. So you can target a point within 24 inches of the Psyker, and then within a 3-inch radius of that point, on a 4-up, the unit suffers 1 mortal wound. So it's pretty nice here. So it's for each enemy unit. So if you have people that are conga lining a lot of, just say Poxwalkers, because I've had that used against me, so it's an easy example for me. I can target 1 or 2 Poxwalkers that are conga lining maybe to a Typhus, and get Typhus and 2 units of Poxwalkers, depending on how they're conga lined, how they're being gamed, in this Flaming Blast. Again, it is only 1 mortal wound, but you can really use this to good advantage when it comes to certain scenarios and certain character types, and so on and so forth. Now, Fire Shield here. Nice thing too, it only has a warp charge of 6, so it's a pretty quick, easy way to get a lot of mortal wounds out. Same thing with Fire Shield here. Basically, it allows you to select a friendly Salamander's unit within 18 inches of the Psyker, and anytime that there is a range attack or charge roll made against this friendly unit, it's subtracted by 1. So any hit on a 2-up now only hits on a 3-up, and if a charge roll is 10 inches away and they roll a 10, well, it's now a 9 because of the subtraction by 1. The 3rd and 6th abilities are on another page, but we're going to take a look at Drakeskin and Fury of Nocturne first. So Drakeskin here basically allows any friendly unit or character for that matter within 12 inches of the Psyker to gain 1 toughness. This is quite nice because remember, these Salamanders have the ability to re-roll a lot of things through their chapter tactic. In addition to that, their Warlord trait gives them +2 strength. So you could use this on a Warlord like Vulkan, and we'll take a look at Vulkan's stat line in a little bit, and make him a pretty big, beefy character. So Drakeskin can be used in a lot of different instances, because I think the biggest weakness of the entire Space Marine army is that they are pretty much 4 toughness across the board. Gravis armor giving that increase of toughness has been pretty nice, but as a whole, 4 toughness is quite weak in the current kind of meta of Warhammer 40,000. Moving on to Fury of Nocturne here. This one's pretty interesting. So if you remember stuff like initiative checks or toughness checks that were really, really prevalent in 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy and have kind of started to trickle back into 8th edition Warhammer 40k, you can see that Fury of Nocturne is that exact example. So you select an enemy unit within 18 inches, roll 2d6. If the result is greater than the highest toughness characteristic of models in that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. So this can be really nice against another unit of Chaos Space Marines. Don't use it against Nurgle, I would say. But it's a really great way to get some 1 to 3 good mortal wounds out on models that probably have 1 wound or so. So you can use it on a very small unit of, say, Terminators, or a unit of other Space Marines or Chaos Space Marines. So it's I think it's a pretty nice way to get a lot of mortal wounds with stuff with low toughness. Now, as far as the other 2 abilities, we've got Burning Hands, which is pretty interesting. So it has a warp charge value of 6, which is nice, and it's only usable on the Psyker by the Psyker. And it has, in my mind, a kind of confusing wording here. Let's read it together. If manifested, then until the start of your next psychic phase, when resolving an attack made with a close combat weapon by the Psyker, if a hit is scored, the target suffers 1 mortal wound, and the attack sequence ends. So, if you have 4 attacks and you attack and you hit with all 4 of your attacks, and let's just say you have a 4 sword. I'm just using, numbers here. And you hit with one of those attacks, do you then only do 1 mortal wound, or do you do a mortal wound per attack? Because it says, if a hit is scored, the target suffers 1 mortal wound and the attack sequence ends. You don't have to roll a wound here. So I'm not too sure on the execution of the wording of Burning Hands. Those of you who know a little bit more about the exact sequence of the wording on certain rules, please feel free to let me know in the comments below. I know that Chapter Master Valrak did cover this, and I haven't gotten a chance to watch his video. And he has a pretty damn good understanding of the rules. He does play some competitive games and then some Maelstrom games. So I'll check his video to see if he covered this in depth. But those of you who do have a really good understanding of the rules, let me know what you think, what this means exactly. To my mind, the way it reads is, even if I have 4 attacks, the first attack that hits does 1 mortal wound, and that's the end of the attack sequence. So let me know. The number 6 here, Draconic Aspect, basically reduces the leadership of models in enemy units whilst their unit is within 12 inches of this Psyker. In certain matchups, this is not an awesome ability. The nice thing here is that almost everything in the Salamander's psychic powers is a warp charge value of 6. Meaning a lot of them are very easy to get off, and that you can get quite a few off without worrying about them getting necessarily canceled out, because you have access to so many only warp charge value 6 psychic abilities. I think it's pretty cool, and it's very thematic for Salamanders. I quite like the approach here, especially the one that increases toughness, in addition to the fact they already have a massive amount of strength increase from their Warlord trait, so many rerolls built into their chapter tactics. It's kind of sizing up to make the Salamanders a little bit bigger of a threat than they have been in previous codexes, or codexes, however you want to say it. So let's take a look at Adrax Agatone, the 3rd captain of the Salamanders. This is the character that we saw on that Warhammer community page with his hammer and his pistol, or his flame melta thing called Dracus, which is definitely a flamer. So taking a look at his profile here. He gets strength 4, toughness 4 to be expected, but a nice 6 wounds and 5 attacks in this bad boy, a nice 2-up save, he got a good 6-inch move. He's got some wheels on him, and I kind of like his profile as well. 12-inch D6 on his Dracus, which also is a strength 4 -1 AP. It's going to be good for clearing up hordes. It's not going to be so awesome against any kind of high armor or high toughness opponents. I'm taking a look at you, Death Guard. I'm taking a look at you, other bigger, badder demons, so on and so forth. Now, he does have his Malleus Noctum, which I believe means Hammer of Night. And it is your typical kind of Thunder Hammer, but with damage 4 rather than damage 3. Strength ×2, AP -3 as well. And you also have the unwieldy trait of it being a -1 to hit. But he does have some special rules I'd like to go through as well. He gets Iron Halo, he gets Angel of Death, and he gets Rite of Battle, all to be expected. But he gets Unto the Anvil. Add 1 to wound rolls for attacks made with melee weapons by models in friendly Salamanders units within 6 inches of this model. So basically, you get the same special chapter tactic that the Blood Angels get if you're within 6 inches of Adrax Agatone. Again, take a look at this. It has to be a unit that has charged, has been charged, or performed a heroic intervention this turn. So this can be a really great way to add a lot of punching power to maybe a unit of Terminators or any kind of close combat specialist you really want to have marching alongside Adrax. In addition, you also get the Iridian Drakehide Cloak. When resolving an attack against this model, reduce the damage characteristic of the weapon used by 1 to a minimum of 1 for that attack. This can really help out because the fact he already has 6 wounds, this can help keep him alive a little bit longer because he still suffers from 4 toughness. Now you can use Drakehide to bring that toughness up to 5, which will then further increase his durability on top of the Drakehide Cloak, which is nice as well. Now let's talk about some fun wombo combos here with Vulkan He'stan, however you want to pronounce that. Now, he is, of course, the big daddy. He's the chapter master of the forge master of, or forge father, Jesus, of the Salamanders. And he's got the typical kind of stat line here. He does have attack 4. He does have wound of 5. So it's a little bit lower than Adrax there, and a save 2 up. Now, he does have his Gauntlets of the Forge, 8-inch assault D6, strength 5, -1 AP, damage 1, and auto hitting, of course. But the big thing here is his Spear of Vulcan. +2 strength, -2 AP, D3 damage. If you pump this guy with the Warlord trait, that gives him +2 strength. I believe that special characters, though, have a set Warlord trait, and I'm not sure which one this one will get. Typically, when you choose a special character and you nominate that character as your Warlord, they are relegated to a specific Warlord trait. For instance, He'stan gets the Speed of Sanguinius, and that locks him in. He has to have that one. So we're not 100% sure what Vulkan's is, and we will find out once that supplement lands. But right now, if he were to have the one that gives him +2 strength, that would mean the Spear of Vulkan would be hitting on 8 strength with a -2 AP damage D3, which is, in my mind, quite nice. Now, using Drakehide on him as well will give him a nice 5 toughness in addition to that. Now, he gets Angels of Death and Rites of Battle, but he also gets Forge Father. You can reroll hit rolls, and you can reroll wound rolls for attacks made with flame or melt weapons by models in friendly Salamanders units, whilst their unit is within 6 inches of this model. So I could see Vulkan going down range with a ton of Primaris aggressors, all equipped with their Flamestorm gauntlets, and being used to amazing execution. Because remember here, you're getting a reroll of 1, and you're also rerolling hits and wounds from Forge Father. I believe, though, that Forge Father counteracts the reroll hits of 1 when it comes to flame weapons, so you don't get like to reroll 1s and then to reroll to hit. You only get the reroll to hit on flame weapons, and any other unit within 6 inches around him that has non-flame weapons just gets their reroll hit to 1, in case that was confusing for you. But again, the aggressors can then reroll their wounds if they have Flamestorm gauntlets. Remember, those guys, if they don't move, they can shoot twice. So that's just a ton of rerollable hits and wounds coming out of those units. And I think that aggressors have really stood out in the meta for Space Marines across all chapters. They really shine because they have a really good durability. They got a nice buff up to their wounds. In addition to that, they can just pour out so much damage. And the way they work in Overwatch, they can also double fire as well. So their slight change to the wording on their rules has really buffed them a little bit, or a lot as well. In addition to, he also gets a 3-up in Vuln save, which is nice because typically when you have a really high value captain, and it's why the Smash captain is so prevalent, is bringing a Storm Shield on him gives him a 3-up in Vuln save. Now with Vulkan, you're going to get your 2-up standard and a 3-up in Vuln save. So he brings a lot of really cool toys to the table, and I think that this is the proper treatment for Vulkan in a lot of really crazy and cool ways. Obviously, you can see from this, he does not make the transition to Primaris. It doesn't say on here that he is Primaris. It just says Adeptus Astartes. If we take a look over here, we can see Primaris on Tor Garadon, and we can see, well, we can't unfortunately see it on Adrax. So Vulkan will not be making that transition across the Rubicon, it looks like. This, of course, excuse this that says clickbait on both these pictures. I could not find a picture without clickbait, unfortunately. But there is a chance that this could be a fluke. This is just some BS picture, and it's just been tweaked or photoshopped, blah, 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 blah. Take this with a grain of salt, as always. These are leaks and not 100% confirmed. When I see stuff like this, I think, oh, yeah, that's a little bit more confirmed to me. When I see stuff like this, and this, it tends to have a little less weight just because it is a solitary picture. But again, I know that plenty of other places, publications, and YouTube channels are covering this exact content, so I'm assuming that this has a lot of, or at least a good amount of credibility to it. But I'm really excited to see what we're going to be getting with the Salamanders and the Imperial Fists. I am excited that the prospect that the Black Templars will once again get their own supplement is kind of circulating the rumor mill, so I hope that does happen. They're one of my absolute favorite chapters, and I'd love to just see them get their own treatment yet again. But guys, I'm just covering more Warhammer 40k news as it kind of happens. Thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one, and take care.